Look at section 4.3, graphing logarithmic functions. If you look above here, we have two functions. We have y is equal to 6 to the x, and then we have its inverse, which is y equals log base 6 of x. And we're going to graph both of these. Let's start with y is equal to 6 to the x. If you look right here, I have a table of ordered pairs. I'm going to go ahead and plot them here. The first point is negative 2.028. That's really close to my x-axis. The next point is negative 1, comma 0.167. And then we have 0, 1, 1, 6. And then 236, which we can't graph on here. So let's go ahead and graph this one. Okay, now let's go ahead and graph its inverse. The inverse is y equals log base 6 of x. If it is its inverse, then we should be able to switch the x and y's around, which you can see I did here below. So let's go ahead and plot these points. The first point is 0.028, negative 2. So that's close to the y-axis. Next point is 0.167, negative 1. The next point is 1, 0. And then we have 6, 1. And the last point here is 36, 2. We can't fit on our graph paper, so. Okay. We're also asked to identify the domain and the range. So let's go find the domain and the range of each. So let's start with y equals 6 to the x. If you look at the domain is all x values. So you can see we can pretty much pick anything in for x and it will work. So the domain would be negative infinity, infinity. Now if we want to find the range, we have to look at the graphs. If you look at the blue graph over here, we could tell that y goes as low as 0 and then it goes up to infinity. So it'd be 0, not including 0, to infinity. Okay, now let's go to the inverse of this function and find its domain and range. So now we're going to look at y is equal to log base 6 of x. Okay, if you look at its domain starts at 0 and then it goes to infinity, which again is the range of this function, which makes sense because they are inverses. And if we look at the range, it goes from negative infinity to positive infinity, which again is the domain of the original function, which was its inverse. Okay, so that completes this example. So this concludes section 4.3 for the worksheet.